Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this week's Epay Tips and Changes webinar for the week of February the 29th, 2016. Now, as to do with all of our sessions, we do mute everybody on this call, so please ask all your questions using the GoToWebinar question area of the control panel here on your right-hand side of your screen. And then you can actually type in your question there, and I'll address those questions at the appropriate time in our conversations today. As a reminder, this webinar, as with all of our webinars, they are being recorded, and they actually go up on the Gateway website shortly after the session is over. But more importantly, you can actually go from the comfort of your own home, Starbucks, whoever has Wi-Fi or internet connection, and actually search for Epay for ISS facility services out on YouTube, and then you'll be able to see all those recorded webinars out there that you can refer back to for your reference. Now, for today's session, as you read in your Epay update on Monday, today's session will be focused on a couple of key topics, primarily surrounded around payroll readiness. So what we're going to do is talk about how do I know that your payroll is ready to go. We're going to talk about the payroll summary screen, kind of review that process, talk about timesheet statuses, and also talk about the payroll register report that's out there. All three of these steps are critical and key to ensuring that you have the proper employees being paid, obviously, but more importantly, have all the T's crossed and the I's dotted when you tell corporate payroll that you are done and ready for payroll to be processed. Then we'll talk about reprocessing timesheets, just a quick little tidbit on how to reprocess timesheets on your own. And then we'll go through some basic reporting, depending on time here. We'll go through all the different basic reporting, specifically the Timecard and Timecard audit reports that are available for you. So let's get started. First topic is payroll readiness. So the key question that I asked a while ago is, how do I know that my payroll is ready to go? So what are the key indicators here that are going to let me know that I've checked everything, that everyone is accounted for, that all the pay looks good, all that good stuff? What can I do to get there? So for all submitters and approvers, each of you have the tools to complete the required steps. Now, let me step away for just a little sec here. Submitters and approvers are the ones that are actually going to be the ones key to this process. Now, your editors that may be joining on this phone call, I'm not saying that they're not important, by no means I'm not saying that, but they will not actually have access to the timesheet screen, they will not have access to the payroll summary screen or to that payroll register report. Now, submitters and approvers have these tools at their disposal now that you can actually do this. So that's the purpose of our webinar. I'm going to walk you through how to do each of these three steps. The first one is probably the most common one and the one that everyone here deals with on a week-to-week basis, and that's your timesheets. So your timesheets have a process within them that you can actually go in there and sort the view by timesheet status. So the timesheets, as I'll go through and explain a little bit more detail here shortly, it gives you the ability to go in and tell the system, I only want to see my open timesheets, or I only want to see my submitted ones. That way you only work with the ones that you need to work with instead of seeing everything that's out there. The payroll summary screen also provides you a number of employees that are not ready for payroll. So right off the bat, you can go in there and check that on the first day of your, say that Monday you're trying to process your payroll, you can go in there and see who is not ready for payroll. And I'll go through that a little bit detail here shortly as well. And then the payroll register report. That is a report that everybody should be running. That's going to display all the employees and their payroll statuses by group, as well as some other payroll information such as gross pay. So you actually know in advance what is someone is expected to pay before it hits JDE, and JDE takes out all the taxes and all that good stuff. So you have a good picture of what's going on. Now, if you run all three of these processes, there's these three steps here that I've mentioned, you're going to be sitting pretty come payroll time. So let's go one by one into each of those, and let's see what each has to offer for us. So the first one is the Timesheet View. Now, the Timesheet View has a variety of different items on here, to which here in a little bit I'm going to log into Blue Force and walk you through this. But right at the big picture here, you have the ability to do quite a few different things with this particular timesheet view. First and foremost is the date selection down at the top middle of the screen. Here you have the ability to go in and tell the system, the date range you want to look at. So from a timesheet view perspective, and everyone should be doing this, you should only be selecting the date range that you're working with. If it's only a week by week pay period, a weekly pay period, just put 1 week at a time. If it's a semi-monthly, then you have a larger range to enter there, but only work with that pay period that you're dealing with. And once you select those specific dates, what's going to happen here is here in the middle of the screen, and it's kind of blocked out by one of my captions here, you're going to see a listing of all the jobs, all the job timesheets for that date range. So kind of in here you'll see you have U.S. Airways Hangar, you also have Greyhound Lines. These are jobs that I have access as being a submitter to seeing. Now keep in mind, you know, if you have, I'm gonna say we'll say out of Houston, there's 150 jobs the city of Houston, but you only have access to 10 of those. Keep in mind that when you go to the timesheet view, you're only going to see those 10 specifically that you have access to seeing. Now, another key thing about this particular screen is that it always gives you the status of what exactly it is for that timesheet that you're working with. So, first column here on the far left-hand side is always going to tell you what is going on with that particular job. So, you as a submitter can come in here and just focus on the ones that say open, because the ones that are open are basically telling you that there has been no submission made, so you haven't submitted those. And obviously, there's no approval of that from the approver because you have done the first step yet. So anytime you see open here, that's telling you that the submitter has not done their part just yet. Anytime you see submitted on this first column, submitted is telling you that the submitter has done their part, but now we're waiting for the approver to come in and take on that next piece of the puzzle. Obviously, approved says that it's done and is being waited. It's now waiting to be exported by corporate payroll. And lastly, if it says export, like the last one does here at the bottom of the screen, export is telling you that it's long gone, it's done in Blue Force, it's over in JDE now. So anytime you see the exported status, that's letting you know that your time is officially locked, you're done doing payroll in Blue Force, move on to the next week, or if there's any changes or edits that have to be done at this point, unfortunately you can't do that in Blue Force through the regular timesheet. You'll have to do it as a manual timesheet entry. Now, as a quick segue, manual timesheet entry won't go through this on this particular phone call, but we'll be going through manual timesheets tomorrow on our 1 p.m. Central webinar. So if you haven't had a chance to sign up for that or see that manual timesheets, it's a good opportunity for everyone to join in on that one. Now, the second column reports open punches here. And open punches always tells you how many punches have issues. And open punch can be best described as any punch that's not paired, which basically means you have an in punch with no out punch, or an out punch with no in punch. That's your typical open punches. But open punches also revolve around approvals. So, for example, if an employee punched in on the Walter time clock, did not have the had a mismatched fingerprint, system let them clock in, but there's still an approval needed there. Or an employee calls in from an unregistered phone number for phone in. That needs to be approved as well. In either of those cases, those are open punches as well. Until you actually approve them, then the system then accepts them as a closed punch. So open punches always tells you how many punches are going to be needing some user intervention, in other words. Now, as you see from the timesheet view here, you can also breaks out your hours by job, but more importantly, if you expand the all task option, you can actually go in there and break it down by custodian, supervisor, landscape, and any other task you have at that job level. So this gives you more information, more from the management that may be on this phone call. You can actually go in and see this timesheet view and say, custodians, I should have 48 hours this week. It's only showing 40 right now. We got a problem. Well, we're probably missing somebody somewhere, some way, shape, form. But all in all, this information on the timesheet view is something everyone should be already familiar with. And we're going to go through this just one more time. Log into Blue Force and walk you through this here momentarily. But at the end of the day, if you ever need to just export this out so you can actually see this in a format that's useful for you, at the very top right-hand side of the top right-hand corner of the screen, you're always going to find these options to export, which are export summary and export details. And in both cases here, you have the ability now to export quick overview. For example, just what's on the screen here, just total hours, regular OT, others, and total hours from the export summary view, and that goes right into an Excel format. Or I can click on export details and actually see the detail for my timesheet. That functionality is there for you if you want to save off a copy locally, obviously, but more importantly, if you want to maybe share your timesheet results with others at your office or on your team, you could actually do that by doing the export summary or export details. So real quick, before I go into demoing this, one other point I want to show you here is that you have a option, and I didn't label it on the screen, but it's called request reprocessing. And I'm going to go through that and show you this here momentarily as a demo, but request reprocessing allows you to tell the system to go reprocess that timesheet. Go in there and make sure that all the rules have get captured, or more importantly, maybe we just put in a lunch rule, or maybe we just put in a rounding rule. And we did this in the middle of the pay period, or even better yet, we just did it this morning right before we had to do payroll. If you want this to apply for that current period that's open, you can always go back, click on Request Reprocessing, and that just basically has the system go back out, clean up any loose ends, make sure that all the payrolls have been applied, and then gives you the accurate amount come for payroll. So from a lunch rule perspective, if we had just put in a lunch rule this is a new job, we forgot to put the lunch rule, we just did it. When you go in Request Reprocessing, it's going to go out there, pull in that lunch rule, and apply it accordingly for the entire period that's represented on this particular timesheet. So keep that in mind. We typically can only do the current period. Prior periods are already closed. We obviously can't go and enforce those rules on those old periods, but we can actually do it on the current active pay period, or pay week. So just as a recap before I move on and actually start demoing this, so some highlights of this timesheet. Once again, it's really the first step for all submitters and approvers. It's actually obviously the most important and probably the most important step of closing your payroll. But this report or this timesheet view gives the ability to go and report by job, employee, or other filter. And I'm going to show you that from the demo site here shortly. It also gives you an option to sort the view by timesheet status. So one of the cool things about that I will demo here momentarily for you is if I just wanted to be, and I'm an approver, and I just want to see everything that's submitted waiting for me to now approve, I could just take my view, show just the submitted items, and I can actually also submit all of those items in one big click, I guess you could say, one step. Now I don't urge that, but I will go through that and show you that a little bit so you can actually see and what else entails that process. You can also show the status of the timesheet. Once again, just keep in mind, the statuses of your timesheets must show approved in order for payroll, corporate payroll to take on this process and continue processing your payroll. Now, it also gives you an open punches count. It shows you hours broken out by regular, OT, other, for example, PTO. But the big thing here, it gives you the ability to export this information into a spreadsheet. Now, you can only export it. It doesn't go both ways. You export it out. You have data as a backup, save, whatever you want to call it, save locally, so you can actually go through and use it and pass it and share with other teammates. So let's do this. I'm going to take a short stop here. I'm going to go back to my my Blue Force session, and let me share this with everybody. So in Blue Force here, I'm going to log in as a submitter, so you can actually kind of see and walk through this views as a submitter would. Now, once you log into Blue Force, up at the top of the screen here, you do have the ability to just go straight to the timesheet section, or I can click on Home and then actually see the kind of the bigger picture where I can actually see timesheets for there as well. Either or is a valid click at this point. Now I'm going to go to Home. I'm going to click on Timesheets. And when I go and click on Timesheets, the system may or may not prompt you for a job selection. Now, if it does, in this case, I have my jobs already predetermined because I am a submitter. I may not get prompted for jobs. What that is telling me is that these jobs shown on the left-hand side of the screen are the jobs that I have access to seeing. So right now I have 6 available to me under my role as submitter for this particular these particular jobs. Now, when I go to the Timesheet View, as I mentioned, you do have the date range at the top of the screen. So by default, what the screen will always show for you is the current date. So the way it always shows yesterday's date to today's date. So keep that in mind. You have to go in there and physically manually change it to the prior week if you need to. Now, the system will capture any timesheets that fall within this range. So, for example, if I look down below, I have different pay periods here because I have the different examples that I'm showing on the screen here. But that pay period will encompass the date from and day 2 at the top of the screen. So even if you select one day at the top of the screen, keep in mind that you're still going to have access to seeing that whole week, or what's referred to as reporting period. And the reporting period is actually the first column of dates on the actual timesheet. So real quick, the difference between the reporting period and the pay period is just that. If it's a bi-weekly pay period, reporting period will show you week 1 and week 2 separate. The pay period will always show the data combined. But typically on a bi-weekly pay period, you're going to have 2 timesheets to submit and approve. One for week 1 and one for week 2. All right, so just kind of going through here real quick. Notice also the statuses that are available on the first column. What I'm actually going to do is, to make this a little easier and probably easier to see for everybody, I'm going to actually change my date range. Right now, the status of all these are open because we're in the current week. And if I actually go back a little bit, and I know there's a few Phoenix records on here, so any of you that are joining us from Phoenix, don't worry, I'm not messing up your entries or anything. I was using them as examples on the screen. If I'm going to go back, say to the 6th through the 13th is my date range that I want to look at. When I do that and hit search, it's going to update my view, obviously, and you're going to see the statuses are all different. Some are exported, some are open. Now, the ones that are showing up here as exported were already completed. Those are ones, the actual records that are being used in Phoenix right now, and those were all sent off to JD Edwards, and employees were paid off of those. The ones that are open, we never did it. We never submitted and approved those, or whatever it may be. In this case, they're test records where they're still sitting in an open state. Now, one thing I mentioned is you can filter by status, and that's a little drop down at the very top of the screen. When you filter by status, this gives you the ability now to choose the different statuses that you want to actually work with. So, for example, I don't care if it's exported or not. The exported ones are done. I mean, they've been paid off. I don't need to look at those anymore. If I want to see those that are still open, I can change my status to open at the top of the screen, hit search, and the Timesheet View will update to show me only the open ones. For those out here on the phone call that are submitters, I urge you to change your filter to open. That way, when you do that and search, you're only looking at the ones that you have to deal with. The ones you've submitted, the ones that have been approved or exported already and gone, really have no relevance in your approvals for payroll right now. You have to get the open ones into a submitted state. So from that, I can go into my job record, I can open up the job, and actually have the ability now, if I need to just click on Submit. Okay? I would still urge you, as a common trait here, to verify your timesheets, make sure everything looks good. And once it looks good, then come up here and click on Submit. One thing that you can also do from that standpoint, let me go back here. You may have already noticed that when I actually did the filter, when I did the filter here, my screen's just so slow, there we go. When I did the filter here at the top of the screen and say open, one thing that changed is you have a nice little button that shows up that says submit timesheets. Now what that does, the filter now allows you to submit all of these in one step. Now I would urge you not to do that route, because that really, everything may look fine on the screen, and if they are, then you can submit them as a group. So I don't want to discourage you from not doing that, but keep in mind that we want to make sure that you do keep everything in check and make sure everything has been reviewed before you submit anything in the system. Now, furthermore, with the Timesheet View, you have the ability now to see that you have some checkboxes here. This one says open, this one says open, but this one here has no checkbox. The reason for that, you cannot submit that particular line or that particular timesheet because you have one open punch still showing out there. Now, as an open punch, what the open punch is just telling you is that something is wrong with that punch for that particular employee for this particular date range, 13th to the 19th. So to kind of help everything, the system does allow you to now click on that little red number 1. In this case, it could be any number, obviously, but that red link there. And when you do that, it's going to take you right over to the time card screen and tell you where exactly that open punch is. In this case, this one tells you that it's waiting for an open punch, and this employee basically clocked in but did not clock out. So now what you're going to do is go in there and edit this time card, fix that open punch, put in an out punch time, and the system will then now close the punch for you. It'll be a successful paired punch, and you will no longer have an open punch. Now, while I am here, I will address that there has always been a concern when I hit open punches and I come in here, everything is blank. And you're thinking, what's going on? It says I have 3 open punches, but everything's blank here. What is going on? One of the things, and for those, I think most of you have gone through my spiel or in my webinar on daily review. And if you haven't, we'll offer one here in the near future. That way you can actually do that. But I do have a nice document that you can reach out to us. Just put a help desk ticket. Say I heard on the help desk call that I need want to learn about the daily review document. I'll be happy to send that out to you. But one of the things that we stress part of the daily review process is that you come up here to the punch type and hit the drop down and say show open and 0 punches. What typically happens is many of us are zeroing out time incorrectly, and we're creating an anomaly in which it's an in punch with an out punch with the same time is considered a punch, obviously with no time on it, but it's still not zeroed out correctly. So it's considered an open punch. So those open punches get hidden in the background and do not become visible unless I change my punch type here to show open and 0 punches, and then hit search to pull them in. So keep that in mind. If you ever have that an issue, just change your punch type at the top of the screen, and that should take care of that for you. So just kind of going through here, I'm sure in a future webinar I'll go a little bit more detail. We'll also have some offshoot webinars that are focused just on this timesheet view. But for right now, I just want to kind of show you some of the basic stuff that you can actually go through from a payroll readiness standpoint. But kind of going through that as well, obviously you do see your hours in kind of in the middle of the screen. If you need to see detail, you can click on the job link, go in and see all the detail of who worked, the total time they're getting paid for those particular days, etc., and what rate type is being charged for that employee. Now, the key thing I want to also focus here on the screen is the request reprocessing. Now, what that allows you to do on the far right-hand side, this gives you the ability to go in and kind of just tell the system, go out there and make sure that everything is reprocessed with the most current payrolls. So if you know that Tiandra and I have helped you with some payrolls, and then very recently, part of our processes here is one of us helps you with something, we're going to tell you to reprocess the timesheet. If you hadn't, or if you just on a second whim just want to go ahead and make sure everything's done, click on it, and when you do so, and let me go ahead and show you what's going to happen. You're actually going to get prompted with 3 choices, and so I'm going to reprocess that first one. And the 3 choices are just that. You can request open process, reprocess only open punches. You can reprocess all employees, or you can refresh only rates. Now, what this is basically telling you is open punches is just that. Anything that's open out there in the system, you want to just process those. And that's probably not going to help you the most. The last one, refresh only rates, only looks at any rate type situations with pay rates and refreshing that information into the system. What I always ask everyone to do, and I've said in prior webinars, is always choose the second one, reprocess all employees. And what that does, it goes to every employee that has worked a certain job and runs through every payroll you can think of that's set up for that job and applies it properly. So when in doubt, reprocess all employees, hit save, and the system will do that. So real quick, I'm going to do that, and I'll move on to our next topic. And right there, when it's saving, it says request queued, and it's processing it. And this process goes maybe about 15 to 20 seconds. If you don't want to wait, the system doesn't automatically refresh the screen right when it's done. It takes a little longer to refresh the screen. So you can actually go out and come back in. Like this one, it did it perfect. About 15-20 seconds is the average wait, unless you really have an excessive amount of employees working one specific job. Then it could take a little longer. But that's it. You're done. And if there's any updates or rules, you would notice it right there in the regular hours or in the other hour columns as needed. So that real quick is just a quick review on the timesheets piece. And as I mentioned, we'll do a more extensive webinar on timesheets and that stuff here in the near future. So let me go back to my presentation and look at item number 2, which is now the payroll summary screen. Now, I think the payroll summary screen is probably the one that is going to help the approver the most. And here's why. First off, this screen is going to let you know a variety of different bits of information. The key thing it will tell you is how many employees are ready, and more importantly, not ready for payroll. So corporate payroll is on the phone. They're calling you. They're wanting to know how much longer is it going to be for you to finish your payroll. Your response is, I don't know. I don't know. I'm waiting for my submitters to do their piece. But you don't have no idea how bad it really is with the submitters. Is it just one submitter? Is it 10 submitters? What's going on? You can quickly go to this screen. Obviously, you can go to the Timesheet View. You can do the filters and see how many open timesheets there are there. But if you come to this particular screen, I can actually go here and just quickly notice that for this particular pay group, I have 3 not ready for payroll, whereas I also have 8 that are ready for payroll. So from that perspective, you know you have 3 individuals who need some assistance with their time cards or whatever may be out there. Get those cleaned up, have the submitters submit those, have you approve them, and then you'll be done, and those will be ready for payroll. Now this screen also for the submitter and approver have some capabilities that might be beneficial for you. Just like the timesheet where you can do group submissions, you can do the same thing from this screen. You can here and say click on submit all, or it'll change to approve all once those are submitted. Now once again, I urge you not to do it this route unless you verify that everything is on the up and up and all the employees are accounted for, everyone's pay is accounted for, all the hours are accounted for. Then by all means you can do it as a group. But keep in mind it's important that we review each timesheet to make sure that our employees are getting paid correctly. Now, one of the things that we put into play about maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago I guess it is, we actually started grouping our pay groups. Now the way the system does it on this particular view, as well to other parts of the system, what it does, it takes the pay group names, you'll see here in this whole column here, and basically clumps or kind of groups all of those like pay groups into a nice small controllable group. Now for most of you on the phone call, it's probably didn't affect you as much because you only have one pay group. Some of you around the country have 5, 6, 7, 10 different pay groups you have to deal with just because you have unions, you have other nice local municipality rules, you know, whatever it may be. Now in those cases, you will notice that the one that's highlighted here in blue in the middle shows you the one group name, but it actually can be expanded to reflect all the pay groups that are that comprise that initial group. So that group is just basically putting your like groups together and kind of for ease of viewing, putting everything together, and just kind of ease to maintaining and handling those multiple pay groups. But this screen also does more than just give you some nice little new functions. It also allows you right to the right of that pay group name, there's an option for show summary. So I click on show summary, this will give you a quick overview of how many hours by rate type do I have in use. So I can quickly click on that and say, you know what, I'm supposed to have about 2,000 hours. I'm at 2005. Yeah, it's pretty darn close. I'm good. Gives you kind of a barometer to go off of, just kind of figure out, you know, where have you been, where you need to be, all that good stuff. But the key thing about this screen is that not ready and ready for payroll options. So real quick, let me go ahead and back out of here, and I'm going to go in and demo this for you too. This screen, this is the highlights. It's the approver's lifeline. This is what approvers should be going by and kind of keeping on track with. You can specify a specific date range, which should be the pay period that you're trying to process or getting ready to close. The like pay groups are now grouped together for ease, can be expanded or collapsed as needed, and I think most of you that have found it to be very helpful have gone in there and expanded so you can see specifics by your pay group names. Shows summary of hours and dollars by rate type. It also shows the number of employees not ready for payroll, to which an improver can actually click on and see who those employees are. So although it says, it says 3 not ready, don't think that you're kind of just stuck there. You don't know, you figure, I have 3 out of 500 employees, which 3 are they? We're not going to do that to you. You can actually click on that number 3, find out who are the ones not ready, and it'll actually pop up on the screen how many, all the entries that employee had, and gives the opportunity down to submit them or approve them from that window as well. And then lastly, it gives you to submit all and or approve all if you need to. So real quick, I'm going to go back into Blueforce. I'm going to show you that, that particular screen. And the payroll summary screen is available off of the top of the screen with the icon that says payroll. Or I can always go back to the home screen. And on the home screen, click on payroll from here. So one of the things, as I always mention on my webinars, is most of you are just going to be following this process right in the middle of the screen. When employees hire, they go to the job. From the job, they record time on the time card. Time card then applies any rules apply, and then go to the timesheet view, from which now you're in payroll, ready to process your payroll, and then I should wrap it up with reports. This is the flow of the entire payroll process. All right, so I'm going to go into payroll, and one of the things the system will do for me automatically is going to give me 2 options. Well, let me back up a little bit. First thing it's going to tell me is up here, first off, is the date range. So I can go in here and put the right date range I want to look at. Okay. So right now, once I get, like I said earlier, it's going to put yesterday's date with the from date, and the to date to being today's date. So now you have the ability to go in here and change those to reflect the date range that you actually want to look at. So I'm going to say I'm doing the 13th of February through the 19th. And then you have the ability to say all pay groups, or I can say a specific employee. Now, the way this works is if I just want to say all, I'm good to go. If I want to see a specific pay group that I'm dealing with, I can go through here and pick from the entire list. Now, just keep in mind that list can be awfully long, just depending on how many pay groups you're dealing with. So that's why we did the groupings of pay groups. Once I click search, the screen will go gray for a moment. It'll come back and refresh your window with the pay period you selected. So I picked the 13th and 19th. So you notice here that the system actually has other pay periods that it pulled up. It pulled the 16th to the 29th because this date range actually falls within the range needed, and so forth. You'll see there's different ones. It's different ones just from a test perspective, so don't panic. You're going to have everyone on this phone call should have a pay period that starts on a Saturday and ends on a Friday. Unless you're semi-monthly, then that's going to be the 1st to the 15th and the 16th through the end of the month, the 29th, the 30th, or the 31st. Now, coming from this screen, as I mentioned, is I can anytime come in here to show summary. And when I do show summary, it's going to tell me how many hours that I have at the different various stages of the game. Now, one thing to keep in mind is lunch may appear here, as it does in my example, but lunch is not paid. Lunch is just an option that's available and to which that we've turned on all timesheets to be reflected there. Just because it shows there does not mean it's being paid. The system knows that lunch is just to record any lunch deduction or time that an employee was at work but was not going to be paid for that time. So when you see lunch like this, don't panic. It's perfectly normal. Now, as I go through here, you'll see all your not readies for payroll. I'm logged in as a submitter, so I cannot go in there and drill down into see who those 3 people are, who that one person is that's not ready. Approvers are the only ones that have the access to actually click and drill down the next step of the game here. And a lot of it revolves around pay rates. There's some exclusive information, I guess you can say, that only approvers with a pay rate option on up can actually access. So that's why submitters can't see that information. Now, if submitters need to see pay rate information, by all means, you can request that via the help desk, We just need to make sure that we have the right approvals in place to allow you to get you that information, access to that information. So just make sure that maybe your supervisor or manager submit that help desk request for you. Now, I'm kind of going through here. You saw the submit all, and if I go in here right now and click on submit all, it's going to give me the option, or on the little note on the screen letting me know that this action is going to basically ignore any open punches, and it's going to take in effect whatever it is out there and submit it. Now, I'm bringing this up not to tell you about it and urge you to use it, but more importantly to draw some caution in doing it this way. There are too many of us out here in the field that are doing it this way and ignoring that message saying ignore open punches. If you ignore an open punch, you basically told the system that person punched in, didn't punch out, they have zero time, therefore ignore their punch, we're going to go ahead and pay everybody else. What that leads to will be discussed tomorrow on our webinar on manual punches. You're now in a situation where you're going to have to create an interim or a manual timesheet because you've just failed to review the timesheet appropriately. So just keep that in mind. That's something that'll be on tomorrow's webinar, but this is a key step. Whenever you see submit all or approve all, just know that once you do that, sometimes from a submission standpoint, there's a going back. You can have the approver go back and reject your timesheets. Now think about it. If I submit all and this pay group had 50 timesheets, guess what the approver is going to have to do? They're going to have to go in 50 different times to reject a timesheet. So that's something that surely your approver doesn't like getting a phone call about, but more so, Tiana and I don't like getting that phone call either of having to go in there and open up timesheets just because someone wasn't really paying attention. So just keep that in mind. If you see something, just read this carefully and just be careful from that standpoint. But the key thing to take out of this timesheet screen or payroll screen is that you have the ability now to see who's ready and who's not ready for payroll. So going back now to my presentation, the last point I want to talk about on payroll readiness is the Payroll Readiness report. This is a report for those that work with Lynn Rule over in audit. This is a report that she's expecting everyone to be running. Tiana and I have all too often had calls with many of you that say that I've never heard of this report or I've never run it before. This report is very close to the equivalent one that you used to get out of J.D. Edwards when you had access to do a lot more in JDE. Nowadays, you obviously don't get that report, and you have to find other ways of verifying that your payroll is good to go before you, say approve. Well, from a payroll readiness standpoint, the Payroll Readiness report is a simple report that gives the ability to enter a date range, choose a specific pay group you want to work with. So in this case, you'll see there I chose a couple different pay groups. And the system will then spit out a report just like this that'll give you the employee information, employee number, name, first name, last name, their default job, just a default job. Then it gives you the total hours that person worked. So it shows you the total pay that person is going to earn and what their status is. So I know there's one user out there, I'll tell you who it is, but they like to take this report, they export it out into Excel, just like you see here. This is all a report that's ready to go for Excel. And you have an option at the top of the screen where you can select the format, hit export, and it goes to either Adobe PDF, which, as you know, it locks the format and you can't do anything with that report. But you can also go to a Excel report, which allows you to now do other things. But this user will actually go take this report and filter out that status column, and will show you, we'll show their user real quick all the ones that only are not ready for payroll. So you can actually filter that out as well. Now this example here, everyone's not ready for payroll because if you're just doing this before you're approving, you actually go through here and you'll notice that everything's not ready for payroll. So once you use it from an approver standpoint, where you're using it as a review standpoint, you can actually go through and kind of checking on hours and verifying that information. From that standpoint, you can actually go in and it becomes very useful. Now the last two columns there, kind of blocked out there, but you'll see one says export EMP and one says is active. In both of these cases, they have to be yes. What that also basically allows you to check for is any employees that are not marked for export. That that doesn't happen all too often, but if someone was tinkering with the employee record and accidentally unchecked that option to not export the employee's time would show up on his report but would not be exported to JDE when the time came. So that means that employee, although they worked 40 hours, would not get paid via their pay card or paycheck come that next week. Is active, same thing. They have to be active. If they're not active, then obviously the system will. If they're not active in Blueforce, they're not active. They won't be active in JDE. So JDE, just so you know, if it says inactive, if it says active as no, when we do the export, the time will go nowhere. It's not going to go anywhere because we only care about active employees. So just keep that in mind. There's a couple of things you can look at from a payroll readiness standpoint. I'm going to show you how to run this real quick. It's a very simple report. But just real quick, some highlights of this. It's a big step, and it's a key step for everything here, and everyone should make it a point to have the approver run this before approving any payrolls. Once again, if you hit approve, we've made some changes this week where the IT group is no longer going to be directly involved with your exports. Corporate payroll is going to take over the whole process. And we have some interfaces that are out there checking and running all the time as well. Once you hit approve, you've now told the system, I'm good to go, I've reviewed my payroll, proceed with processing payroll. If one of those interfaces were to run and say, look, there's something approved, let's go ahead and start exporting, or your corporate processor says, look, Jennifer over here out of California, she's done, I'm going to go ahead and start processing her payroll, that approval has given them the authority now to go to the next step. At that point, there is a point of no return, which I'll talk a little bit more also in that manual timesheet class tomorrow. But that point of return is met. There is no turning back. So lo and behold, once you approve, just keep in mind we don't always have the ability to go back and reject that approval. Sometimes it's just all too late. The system takes it up, sends it over to JD Edwards, and now any corrections or missed time will have to be done on the manual timesheet. Now, the key thing about this report, it shows the status of who's ready for payroll. If you see anything out there that says not ready, make sure you know that it's not good. And then provides you hours and dollars to be paid, which is the gross pay. This is basically the gross pay report that you used to get out of JD Edwards. And then those last two columns, like I said, have to show yes. Export employee and is active must show yes. And then make sure that you also know if this report is exportable to Excel. And I'm going to show you real quick how to export that to Excel. So real quick, one more time back to Blueforce. And I'm going to go, to get to this report, I'm going to go back to the same payroll screen where I started, which is that payroll summary window. And this is one of the reports that's kind of hidden. It's kind of hidden between other links. It's on the left-hand side of your window here, on the left-hand column, and it's called Payroll Register Report. Now, underneath there, which is stuff I'll be talking about tomorrow, on tomorrow's session, you have some manual timesheet entry information that's available for you there as well. Very similar to the screen you see here, and information will be coming out, but nevertheless, that's for tomorrow's webinar. The Payroll Register Report, once you click on that link, that allows you now to go in and actually run that report that I showed you. Now, the first thing the system is going to do is going to give you those two options. It's going to give you the date range you want to look at. So if I wanted to see what's on my current week now, you can run this at any point. My current week started the 27th and ran to the 1st. And I can say I want to see only the weekly pay periods that fall in this range, or I only want to see the bi-weekly, or I only want to see the semi-monthly. Don't get hung up with these options. Just leave it all and hit search. And the system is going to return all the pay groups and pay periods that meet your criteria that you just selected. Now, for me, it's simple because I only have access to 2 pay groups based on the job selection that's on the left-hand side of the screen. So keep that in mind. If I only wanted to work with one job, maybe 2 of these jobs, or if I wanted to just work with a different subset of jobs, I could go in here and hit clear, and then go back and hit select, which is right next to it, and the system will then allow me to select the jobs that I want to work with. So it could be these 6, I could just work with one, however I want to do this. Keep in mind, whatever your job selection is going to give you the applicable pay rates in the middle of the screen, pay groups and associated pay periods in the middle of the screen here. So typically I just say select all so you can just run a report all together. But if I only wanted to see all the ones that are in the 452 pay group, which is out of Phoenix, or the 703, also out of Phoenix, I could just focus on that particular option. Once I'm done, I hit generate, and generate report. It's spelled wrong, we know, it says generate report. But nevertheless, once I do that, I have an example of my report down below. So you quickly see and focus on who's ready for payroll and who is not. So keep in mind that particular column right here. And once again, this report is based on the date range and associated pay periods for that within that date range. Now, at the top of the screen, I just want to mention here in the middle, there's a little bar. This gives you the ability now to first view the report page by page using those blue arrows. You can tab or go page by page and view it on screen. Or more importantly, I can go here and select the format, and in that format, I can now select Excel and have that exported to Excel for me. So I can choose Excel, click on Export. The system will just give you an option. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see here it says I want to open this particular report that it's creating for me. If I say OK, I can open it up. And on my other screen here, the system is opening up this report, which I'm going to share for you real quick so you can actually see what's going to happen. And there you go. There's my Excel report. So now I can filter, I can mess with it, I can do whatever I want to do, but there is that report that you have at your disposal. Now, one of the nice features, I'm going to go ahead and bring it up. One of the nice new features that we have here with ISS is we actually have a help desk area that's devoted strictly to your desktop applications, such as your Office, Microsoft Word, Excel, Access, you name it. So whenever you get to one of these points, you have down to a point where you have a report that you can use. You've exported out of Blue Force, and now you want to do something, nice and witty with it. Put some charts or pivot tables or sort a certain way, and you don't know how to do that. Don't fret. What you can do is you can call our help desk now and choose option 3 on our help desk line, and that'll take you to a group of members of our team, we'll just say, that are devoted strictly to those desktop applications. So you can ask them any question you like. They'll be able to help you and walk you through that next process. So it's something that's just now starting to come out, something we started yesterday. That's something you have an ability now to access at your leisure. So that is the payroll process register that you should be running all the time, just to make sure that everything is good to go. Now, once you've gone, even after you've approved and you verify the payroll summary screen, everything is good to go and everyone shows ready for payroll, it doesn't hurt you to run this report one last time, just so you can actually verify that this report also shows everyone ready for payroll. Obviously, you can save this off as kind of your receipt that you did your payroll, and these are the amounts that everyone was destined to be paid. So that's your payroll readiness section. I'm going to go through real quick. I know we're probably running out of time, but I'm going to go through some basic reports next of that you can actually use for your benefit in the system. And I'm only going to focus on 2 reports for right now. In the near future, we'll have a full webinar just on reports, covering all the different reports that are out there. Right now, under the reports menu in Blue Force, you have access to seeing all the reports that are out there. You feel free to go in there at any point. Feel free to go out there and run every report that's out there and see what they can do for you. It's not going to hurt anything. Some of you may find some benefit to some of those reports. If you run through some of those reports and you have any questions or concerns about those reports, I'll be happy to walk you through those on a future webinar as well. So let me go into one of the questions here real quick. It says, pay group I choose shows me all of California. Is there any way to only see Roseville jobs? You can actually go through there from the selection criteria of a job level. You can actually go through there and just pick the jobs that you want to work with. That's the first and foremost easiest way of doing that. Select those jobs from the Timesheet View, for the job selection criteria, I'm sorry. When you go into the Timesheet View, it's only going to show you the timesheets referring to those jobs you want to work with. Or more importantly, the report that I just ran. When you run that report, it's going to show you the pay groups that are associated. So that gets a little sticky. So you might have to actually go in there and do an extra step from the reporting standpoint, the payroll register report, and probably sort out, maybe export to Excel, and then actually sort it out by job at that point. We can work with you on that, a little more detail on that, but typically you can limit your groups down to just the pay group itself that you need to work with. All right, so just some basic reporting pieces here. First off, I just want to go through the Timecard and Timecard audit reports that I want to mention to you. And once again, all Blueforce users can use these reports. So if you're an editor, submitter, approver, whatever role you have there, you have access to seeing these reports. Now, the Timecard report is the easiest one. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. That can be run by job, employee, rate type, punch type. It's a very fluid report that basically gives you the detail on the employee's time card. Nothing more, nothing less. So if you want to see a report of all the punches for somebody, you can do a time card report. Some users do not use the time card report. They actually go to the time card view and export the time card view out as well. That's another way of doing it. Two ways, but either way works. The time card audit report is the one that I think is going to be most beneficial for everyone on this phone call. Same criteria. You can run it by job, employee, or by source, meaning is it a Walter punch? Was it a phone-in punch? Was it a web punch? What's the source of that punch? And then for a given range, it's exportable to Excel. But the cool thing is it provides you a view with all the audit detail behind it for every time card entry that was recorded. If you ever have a concern as to how a change was made in the system or who made that change, run this time card audit detail report, and it's going to give you that information on that screen as a report. Obviously, you can also go to the timesheet audit, time card audit detail and see the audit detail there as well. But that takes some clicks and some drilling down. Whereas this report, you have it on a nice report. You can share with others and say, hey, why did you make this change? I see on the 15th you made a change. What's going on? So nevertheless, these two reports are available to you right now in Blueforce. The first report, and obviously at the top of the screen, you do have an icon for reports. It gives you the ability there to click on reports, then go into time cards, in which now you can actually go in and see the time card detail. Now, this report is very fluid, and what we meant by that is that right at the very top of the screen, you do have some options that say show. Now, in this section where it says show, you can tell the system which items do I want on this report. So basically, the default items are shown below: the job name, date, the ID, the payroll employee ID, the employee name, and the rate type. But maybe I want to see the actual hours. I want to see rounded hours. I want to see, the caller ID information. I have the ability to choose which ones I want to use for this report. Now, once I do run this report and actually see that, I do then get the ability now to proceed on with that actual report and actually processing it and having it there, to which now I can export to Excel and do all that good stuff. I'm going to show you that here a little bit in the demo. The Timecard audit report is very similar. It's also on the Timecard menu on the left-hand side of the screen under reports. But this one does one step further. It actually shows you kind of the audit information behind that. Now, one of the things you can do is, like I said, you can pick by source. You can actually go in and obviously export to Excel. You can actually put a specific date range. So you've got stuff to work with. But the audit report, what it's going to do for you, and this screen will show you in a little bit. I'll show you in the demo. You have a little entry here with a arrow. Those little entries with arrows let you know that there's more detail that can be expanded on this report. So that now allows you to see the audit behind, in this case, Jose Flores' punch. What happened? Why was something changed? Was something edited? What's going on? You can actually click on that arrow, and it will actually show you the audit detail for that particular line. Now, if you need to at that point, then like I said, you can export it to Excel. You have that information with that detail available for you. So one last time, let's go back into Blueforce. I'm going to show you real quick where you can run these reports. Obviously, the top of the screen, you have an icon that says Reports. Now, from that icon, I can now go in there and just simply click on Reports. Left-hand column, you'll notice that there's about 20 different reports out there. They're all canned reports. If there is a need for a special report out there, we can put one together for you. Obviously, we need some detail behind that. We need that also via a help desk ticket, but we'll be happy to assist you with that. But a lot of these reports will do the trick. Timecard reports are at the very top of the screen, so keep in mind you have the time cards and the time card audit report, the two that I just mentioned, are available to you at the top of that menu. And from that, all you're going to do is simply click on one of those links, and it's going to let you go into the actual report you need to work with. So to that note, I'm going to click on time cards to show you real quick how easy it is to run this report. Put in a date range. Timecard report is perfect because you can actually run that for punches that are right now going on. So if I want to see everybody who punched in on the 1st, create a punch on the 1st, through the 1st, I can do that. Now keep in mind, since I'm doing a specific date of punch, it doesn't break out your in and out punches. What this is just saying is, tell me any time cards that were punched on that particular day. So anybody who punched out on the 1st, like early morning hours of the 1st, are going to appear on this report, and that's perfectly normal. So from that, I can pick a job if I only want to look at a certain job, or I want to look at a certain date range. I have all that information up there. But the cool thing is, I can tell the system I want to show the tasks they worked, I want to show any work orders they worked, I want to show the actual hours they punched in at, and let's say that's all I want. I hit on submit one more time. The system will then update my screen to reflect that information that I just asked for. Now once again, I said 3-1 and 3-1, so these are the only punches that are recorded on March 1st. And you also notice they're all in punches at 8:01 this morning for all the same job. Now, as the other report, like I mentioned earlier, you can then, once you run it, have the ability to say Excel or Adobe Acrobat for your PDF version, for your export, and you can then proceed from there. Very simple report to run. I encourage all of you to go out there and use this simple report. It's very helpful. It's very user-friendly. You can actually go out there and do it anytime. The other report, Timecard Audits, is another report that's very easy to run. Timecard Audits works the same way. You'll notice here that, as I mentioned on the first screen, on my PowerPoint slide, that these little arrows that dictate that there is some issues or some potential audit items that need to be looked at or could be reviewed. Now what that's telling you is that someone in this case went in and manually entered some time or edited some time or did something on that particular record. As everyone knows here and is familiar with, anytime you see yellow in the time card view, the yellow is telling you that someone's manually added time, and that's what that little arrow is going to tell me when I go and drill down into it. The oranges are telling me that someone made a change. The green at the very bottom of the screen is just letting me know that someone called in from phone-in at that job site. Now in any case, when I go in here and click on one of the arrows is going to expand and give me that audit detail. So the way it looks here, so everyone's on the same page here, first line shows me the punch that was entered for somebody. And then when I click on that arrow, notice the arrow even changes position. It shows like it's pointing down to the right. That's telling you that now you have the audit section exposed for that particular timeline or those punches, and it's letting you know what the reason code was, modified it last, and when it was actually modified. So this Timecard audit report gives you all the detail that you would ever need from a standpoint of being able to review your time cards with a little bit more extra information, obviously. So that right there is a Timecard audit report. Very simple report for you to use. We ask everyone to run this as well from time to time, just to keep tabs of what's going on in the field, because many of us don't actually go and look at the audit detail. We're just too worried about submitting and approving time. But this report, in a quick couple clicks, you have all the information you need. You can actually go in now and see all the drill downs and all the information. When you export this to Excel, the system will export this out of detail with it. So you'll be able to go in Excel and actually see this detail as needed as well. So kind of with that, that kind of draws us to the end of our session today. I know I just went a minute or two over, which is, I guess, perfectly fine. Just as a reminder, a couple of things that we have going on this week. Obviously, we have another webinar class on Thursday for the same session. But I want to point out to everyone, we're having another manual timesheet webinar tomorrow at 1 p.m. Central. So just keep that in mind, at Central Standard Time. And you can actually see the links I sent out yesterday to everybody. But with that, I just want to say thank you for joining us today on our Epay Tips and Changes webinar. Like I mentioned, we hold these every Tuesday and Thursday, 2 p.m. Central, and we'll have the same session today again on Thursday, and we'll return next week with some different topics. But please, if you have any suggestions, let either Tiandra or myself know what those suggestions are, and we'll incorporate that into next week's session. So with that, have a happy Tuesday, Super Tuesday, I guess you're going to say, and we'll talk to everyone again real soon. Thank you.